In the name of Amen, the Supreme, the All-Powerful, the one and only true Lord, in Amen we trust, in Amen we thank, and in Amen we continue forward forever. I'm the intellectual Nuben Menkares, and I'm going to be speaking on the original bronze Mesoamericans, how the original bronze Mesoamericans became Latinos. Because our history, our true history, is being hidden under blackness, under African Americanism, and all kinds of other false titles, I took it upon myself to make a quick impromptu recording concerning our true heritage, our true history as Mesoamericans. Now, when I did that audio on Tariq Nasheed and Dane Calloway, I got a lot of ignorant comments in this section, and I got some intelligent ones. Again, I was being objective, but I wanted to start doing, short recordings like this so that people can go and look up things for themselves, point you in the right direction. First and foremost, our people, so-called Black Americans, are indigenous to America, not to Africa, indigenous to America, right? We have our roots here in America going back to the Olmecs, the Aztec, the Inca, the Mayan, the first civilization builders in the world. The oldest civilizations are here in America, in the Americas, going back to Mexico, going back to South and Central America, the Yucatan, all built by our people. These areas were originally inhabited by our people, who are called Black people today, or Black Americans today. Today we see a mix of people who now are in those areas. However, the presence of our people, the bronze Mesoamericans who are falsely being called Afro-Latinos, are still there. And many of our people migrated from South and Central America and Mexico into North America. Your Mayans, which you can see in the slides, are, what you would call Black people. I don't like to use the term black. Black was a term that was created by the U.S. government, just like white, to basically deprive us, the American indigenous people, of our lands, of what is rightfully ours as indigenous Americans. Now, you got a lot of people who are playing along with this. A lot of people, your boule class, who are playing along with this lie that our people came from someplace else, namely Africa. Again, the whole African trope that is being, put in the minds of the people being brainwashed by this. This was created by Caucasians, people like your, what's this guy's name? Forget, I'm not recalling his name right now, but it'll come back to me. But these out of Africa theories, Darwin, it came to me. Charles Darwin and other people came with this out of Africa theory, which is still to this day a theory. This is not fact, and it has not been proven that all life started in Africa. And it is not a fact that life, so-called Black people's lives and origins, are in Africa. That is a lie. Europeans, Asians, or Caucasians and Asians could be traced back to the origins of these lands. But then you have our people who cannot be. Because you see so-called Black people or so-called Africans in those areas does not mean they originate from those areas. In fact, many of our people, a lot of the population was brought into Africa, right, and distributed throughout Africa to be utilized as different, to do different tasks for the conquering Greeks and Europeans that started to take over the landmass known as Africa, which they named themselves, by the way, Africa. So I asked the pro-Black people, the ones who have a problem with me saying that we are the original Americans, that the word America actually comes from us, the Mayans, which is our people, which you can look on the Bone and Pong temples. There are plenty of images of our people who are not African on the walls in the ancient civilizations of the Mayans, the Olmecs, the Aztec, the Inca, who made their way into North America. We are the descendants of those people, the original indigenous American people. Our story, our lives start here. Our history and heritage starts here in America, not Africa. Again, this lie that all life started in Africa is just that, a theory and a lie, perpetuated by Europeans to try to create this ideology that all life started from one person, that we are all somehow linked. When I said that so-called black people are not linked, not directly linked to the Caucasians and the Asians, we are not directly linked to those people. And we also do not come from the same place as these people. Okay, you can clearly see that in these areas where our original people were, the Olmecs, who have the genotype and phenotype of broad nose and thick lips and woolly hair, you can see the braids in the back of their helmets. These were clearly what you would call black people today. Now, with the migration of your Spaniards, your conquistadors, and the Mongoloid who crossed the Bering Straits, the Mongolians, they mixed in with the indigenous bronze copper colored American indigenous people who were native, who were indigenous to this land, our people. This is why you got these types of mixed race Latinos today. They are not the original people. They have, or they are connected to us indirectly, but they are not the original descendants of the Mayans, the Aztec, the Inca, and the Olmecs. Those people are here in America today. If you look at the pictures of what I put in the slide, you'll even see there's even an image of a Mayan warrior that looks like myself. Again, the Mayans of today are here in America. The descendants of the Mayans are here. The descendants of the Aztec are here in America. And from them came all these American indigenous tribes, right? And along with that came the Asians, right? Your Mongolians and your Europeans who mixed in with our people. This is why you have, going back to the 1700s, you'll see that Indians or American Indians, you know, they have very dark skin, and even further back, the woolly hair. But then you'll start seeing some with dark skin, with straight hair and like slanted features, Asian features. That's from the Mongolian mix. But the original people of that land is so-called black Americans, falsely being called African American, falsely being called black people. This is an erasure of our heritage and culture. We're watching the same thing take place right now with people like Fat Joe, right, who is Latino, who is trying to claim 50-50 creation of hip-hop, our music, with Latinos. Now, Latinos are not a real race of people. They're not a real race. They are a mixed race of people. They are mixed with everything from Asian, from the Mongolian invasion, the European Spanish, from the conquistadors, and our people, the bronze copper colored people falsely being called black. That is these people today. The descendants of the original Mesoamericans, the first and real Americans, the only real Americans are here in America today, being called black Americans, Negroes. Ask yourself a question. What was the whole point of constantly changing our identity? What was the point of changing our identity? How come we went through so many different classifications? Again, I had these people who were pushing this FBA thing on my in my comment section when I was addressing the whole Tariq Nasheed and Dane Calloway thing. And I said, go back and ask Tariq Nasheed who called us black people. Who called us black people? Who called us African Americans? And he knows the answer to that. He knows it's the same people who he refers to as the system of that group of people who he refers to as a system, or the system of white supremacy, or the white supremacists. He knows those are the people who were referring to us as black and African American as a way to hide our culture, hide who we really are as the Mesoamericans and the indigenous Americans. And as I said, the word American comes from our people. That's why I readily accept American as what I am, American indigenous. That comes from our people. It doesn't matter if the government acknowledges us or not. Because I asked the question and I didn't get an answer. Somebody said, we need to get away from the whole trying to be indigenous thing, because what is that getting us as a people? And I asked the question, what has black gotten you? We've been being called black, or they was trying to push black on us since the turn of this last century. They finally got it to taking our people when they introduced groups like the Black Panthers and other ones, these pro-black and Pan-Africanist groups, which were really black boulets in disguise, trying to do the bidding of the U.S. government to help us in reclassifying our people, basically taking it and trying to push that on us. And I even said that James Brown, whether he was in Boston or wherever he was, when Martin Luther King got killed, and he was able to stop this riot in Boston, because, I think it was in Boston he was performing, if I'm not mistaken. He was able to stop the riots of black people. He calmed everything down in that city after Martin Luther King got killed. Right after that, you can look this up. Shortly after that, the FBI came and paid James Brown a visit. And he was asking, well, why are you paying me a visit? I stopped the riots, and they said, well, if you can start a riot, if you could stop a riot, you can start a riot. So they came away with two things. They see that he was influential and that he can get a message across. The U.S. government was pushing across this whole black thing because, again, in this society, they believe in polar opposites. The U.S. government wanted to classify our people as black so that they would know who to deprive of resources. Because keep in mind, unless you are classifying under identity or thing, in the census, they don't know who to allocate resources to or who not to. They don't want to allocate resources to the indigenous people, aka the so-called black people, because black is just really another word for indigenous. And they want to allocate all the resources to the immigrants, the whites, or the people who are classified as white. And this goes to prove what I said. Tariq Nasheed said himself that Asians and Latinos classify as white. So my thing is this: if you're saying that people are able to classify as white, then that means white is a classification of the government, just like black is. So why are you trying to push black as a lineage when it is clearly not a lineage? We don't have black skin. All right. The same, again, as a whole lot of, lies and trickery and people who look like us or not really for us out here misleading us. So, again, you have these people today who are calling themselves or claiming to be Mesoamerican. These Latinos with the straight hair and beige complected with the straight hair. But if you look on the Bone and Park temples, you can clearly see who the original Mayans are. You can clearly see who the original Olmecs are. You can clearly see who the original Inca are, the Aztec are. That's our people. That's so-called black Americans or bronze copper colored people. Because at one point in time, our people didn't even want to be called or referred to as black. You see, they so big. People like Tariq Nasheed so big on talking about the elders and how they were riders and whatnot. Well, one of the things they rode against was being called black. How come Tariq Nasheed never mentions that? How come he never mentions the fact that our people did not like to be referred to as black? Because they knew that was meant to be an insult from your so-called white supremacists. So now why is he riding so hard for black? We're not getting nothing under being black, and we haven't gotten anything, and we're not going to get anything under black or being labeled black. Whether you calling yourself African American, black, foundational black American, these are all misclassifications that are meant to lead us nowhere. You people that are sitting up here talking about some movement there's no movement. Okay, there is no movement. They have in place things in the government, I forget what that's called, benign neglect policies to ignore you so-called black people. So why do you think that you're going to get something under being black? I just wanted to know that. All right. But we are the original Mesoamericans. We are the real Americans today, the only real Americans by nationality. And that's what we should be stomping for. And it doesn't matter whether the U.S. government acknowledges or not. They're not going to acknowledge anything. They are the ones that's pushing us to accept black and African American. And so are a lot of these black boulets who are working in concert with them. But that's it. That's all I got to say on that. I'm going to close on the name of Amen, by the power of Amen. And Amen we trust, and Amen we think, and in Amen we continue forward forever.